Okay, so today we are looking at this problem. This one, I'll give you a heads up, is a particularly tricky one. So let's read what's going on. Rob left the hospital and traveled towards his cabin on the lake at an average speed of 55 miles per hour. Ted left sometime later. We don't know how long later, but he left sometime later, traveling in the opposite direction with an average speed of 60 miles per hour. After Rob had traveled for 3 hours, they were 345 miles apart. Find the number of hours Ted traveled. So we're going to start off making our chart with our 6 boxes. We've got rate times time equals distance, and then we have Rob and Ted. All right, we do know Rob's rate. What is it? 55. We know Ted's rate, 60. The time is tricky. Let's figure out the time. Look what it says right here. After Rob had traveled for 3 hours. So don't I know that Rob traveled for 3 hours? Yeah, so I get to just put a 3 in right there. They told me Rob traveled 3 hours. You're done with that part. Ted is a little trickier. It's telling me that Ted left sometime after Rob did. So all I know is that Ted has been traveling sometime less than 3 hours. I don't know how much less than 3 hours. So I'm going to write it in as 3 minus x. Because he's some amount less than 3, I just don't know how much. So if I don't know how much, I'm going to use a variable. Now, does that make sense? By the way, if you had just called Ted's time just x and not done 3 minus x, you still would have gotten the right answer. Okay? But hopefully you understand why I did 3 minus x, because I know it's Rob's time. He's been out for 3 hours. And now Ted is sometime less than that. Once we have these 4 boxes filled in, we multiply straight across, right? So 55 times 3 gets me 165. And then don't forget to distribute down here. That's a 180 minus 60x. Okay, so now with these 2 distances, the distance that Rob went and the distance that Ted went, we always, well, almost always do one of 2 things. We either set these 2 distances equal to each other, or I add them together and it equals some other distance that they went together. Which is the scenario this time? I add them together because it told me right here they were 345 miles apart after the 3 hours. Okay, so now I'm going to take both of these, add them together, and set it equal to 345. Now I just solve. Turns out that's 345. Minus 345 from both sides. Just because you get a 0 doesn't mean anything's wrong. I got x is 0. Well, what did x represent again? Yeah, Ted traveled for 0 hours less than Rob did. That's all. So if I plug in 0 right here, Ted has also been traveling for 3 hours. That's why this question is a little bit trickier, because you were expecting to get some number here, right? And then you plug it in and you say, oh, Ted's been traveling for X amount of hours, and that's different than Rob. Okay? But that's not how this one worked out. This one just so happens that X was 0, so they both have been traveling for 3 hours. So that's our final answer. Ted traveled for 3 hours. Is that all right? Okay.